Hello and welcome back to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past to discuss their relevance and impact today. I'm Brett Duval, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, a man who just moved to Georgetown to open up a coffee truck.
Tim Longo. I'm trying.
You keep trying, man. I mean, we're not just going to talk about that game because we are going to talk a little bit more about Papers, Please. If we have other things to say, we might.
Yeah, they're for me for sure. Yeah, there's more to say there because I did get further. Yeah.
Okay, but we are also going to start talking about Cart Life tonight, and then finish talking about Cart Life and do takeaways next week. So we're doing a sort of little 2 games, 3 weeks kind of little scenario here. Thanks for joining us last week with the interview between Calamity Nolan was the interviewee, and Discord users Bio, Stats, and Kaon, who did the interviewing. It was a good conversation. I listened to all of those before I put them in the feed, just to make sure there's not, language, not that I expect there to be, but, it's in our feed, so I have to actually know.
You got to watch those 3. I mean, you never know.
Calamity might be a secret Tarantino. You just don't know. But
he has his way of swearing his own unique way.
Yeah. It has a lot to do with Tim puns. Yeah,
puns and yeah.
There was he should change his name to Rapunzel. Anyway, I thought we'd also talk about some of the folks who joined us last night for our stream. We didn't talk about this pre-show, so I don't know how much you want to talk about that, but you want to talk about what we're doing?
Sure. Yeah. I'm always nervous about how much across the quote unquote streams. But thanks for coming out. Yeah, we didn't have, and I haven't, to be transparent, I haven't listened to the interview yet with Calamity, so I will do so. And every time we do have one of those, I hope we can talk about it, comment on a little bit. So I'll give you warning once I do have time to it, and then we can. I do love.
Unlike the warning I didn't give you to talk about.
That's okay. No. And I think I missed Kyle's too, so I'm going to go back. I think I've listened to the rest of them, but. So maybe we'll hit both. Once I listen to that, I'll make you re-listen to that one. Anyway, yeah. So as you know, Brett's alluding to Twin Suns for those who don't know and aren't on the Discord maybe, or regularly following this stuff. We are finally talking about our game. I don't remember if we talked about that 2 episodes ago or not, but
we did not.
Okay, Project Octavia. Yeah, so we basically soft announced it, and we are taking matters into our own hands and doing what we think is the right thing to do. And so the game is great. It's really fun. We actually did a live stream on our company Twitch, which is Twin Suns Corp, if you are interested in checking it out.
I'll put a link in the show notes for that as well.
Yeah, and so we played 3 matches of our game. Which is stealth action multiplayer game, which is not, those aren't words you hear very often. That is part of the point, is that we're trying to carve out our space on the internet, in the gaming space. Anyway, yeah, so I did put the VOD for the stream up on YouTube. So look for Twin Suns Corp's channel on YouTube if you want to watch and you missed the stream. But yeah, thanks to everybody coming out. It was a great showing. We had a lot of good support from this community and, friends and family and stuff and colleagues. And we had some strangers, which is good, always good as well. Some new faces, but yeah, especially with this community. I know we have a lot of game developers in the community and a lot of people in the Discord who share their projects, which is great. So as they finally convinced me, we are also a developer in the community. So we are now sharing what we are doing, as weird as it is. So
I'd love for us sometime to actually also on a stream like that show our first playable. I guess we have that build still. That's a
great idea.
That's a branch we have that we could just like switch to that branch and play it, and show like, well, this is where it was a year, more than a year before our vertical slice, which is what we were basically playing last night. Yeah. And and we also have a video somewhere. It's pretty long. It's like 20 minutes, which is like the game from like a month into like where we basically have kind of had to put development aside for now, not to go too much into the backstory, but and that's amazing to watch too, because you see, the spaces change, you see like, just technology come online, you see new mechanics come online over the course of this 20-minute video, which covers like, I want to say like almost maybe more than 2 years, about 2 years.
I think more than 2 years. Yeah. But
Yeah.
around 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah. It's
so,
really cool.
yeah.
Yeah, that would be good. One thing that I really enjoyed about I don't know, you should speak to it too. One thing I really enjoyed about the stream, and we're going to keep streaming, by the way, for the time being, as much as people will want to, and we will want to, Mondays, Monday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific. So we'll move it around if that time ends up being bad. But one thing I enjoyed personally about that stream that sort of relates to the podcast is that we are able to show game development in an unfinished game. Like the game in certain ways, I would say is finished or very close, like in a beta form at least.
Yeah.
Or early access form. Like the gameplay specifically is very robust.
Gameplay is amazingly.
Yeah.
I've never played a game which at vertical slice, I've never developed a game which at vertical slice is as complete from a play standpoint as this one is. They're all supposed to be, like, that's the goal, but I've never actually, it's not something you normally achieve. And this game has so much of what we wanted to achieve with it, in that, even in the first playable state, it was pretty close. There were a couple things that were missing. And so I would say our first playable wasn't completely what we wanted it to be, but this vertical slice absolutely is. So this sort of pre-alpha, we're calling it.
Yeah. It's it's fun to talk about development, and behind the scenes stuff with something that we built, because we talk about it so much on the podcast, and it's cool to share that. To your point, showing it was a brilliant move for us to keep that branch alive for that first playable branch, so we can easily get to it.
Yeah, and we didn't actually keep a branch alive, but we have one, so it's fine.
Okay, well, not the branch, but
to know
we have the build, right? We have the build.
Achieved, Tim. I just managed to do it. That's all.
Right, brilliant move, Brett.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thanks for coming by. We have some ideas for some future, not just playing matches, like we did last night, but some other types of streams that I think will show even more of the content. And again, the game is in pre-alpha, meaning, not every element in the game is present yet. Alpha being when every element in the game is present in some form, but not finished, and then beta, basically you have bugs and finaling. And then, early access is in there someplace after beta or around beta these days. But so, it's different times. What done means is different these days, especially on Steam. But we would call this pre-alpha because there's a lot of the portions of the map, are not arted and things, which we got to show, which I loved showing. And I was like, let's just do it. So
yeah, let's show what games look like to the people playing them. One thing I will say as well about this game that, and we should get to Papers, Please soon, but one thing about Project Octavia that I appreciate is that I have played so much of this game. I've played more of this game than I've probably played of any game I've developed, and I still look forward to playing. Like, I don't.
And this is a multiplayer game.
I love it. Yeah, I don't like multiplayer games. I don't play multiplayer games. I don't like them. I don't like to be online, and with strangers basically. But this experience of this game is fun for me every time. And Tim and I had, like a moment that was just like, that was amazing. I also in the first game, I think the first match, we were fighting over a transmitter, and I was watching the video today, and I was like, oh yeah, that was me too. You didn't know it was me because my name had not come up. But we had another like run in earlier. We weren't specifically gunning for Tim in any of these matches, but when it would come up, it was like, well, there's Tim. I guess we should show people watching what it's like when people know that you're streaming. So
I've had better matches, I will say.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But,
you have.
But we were definitely multitasking. And Harley, our design director.
I was going to say huge thanks to Harley and former guest of the show, Harley Baldwin.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
She worked with us on Republic Commando. We do have some. This is like getting the band back together kind of game as well, which has been like not something that happens in the industry normally. So it's been a pleasure from that standpoint too. But anyway, anything further you want to add there? We could probably fill a full hour on that, but we should.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Thanks for bringing it up. And again, I'm always nervous about how to talk about that stuff on here because we're always trying to be non-promotional here, but I think it's okay.
I have heard it, Tim said that this is our podcast and we can do what we want with it. So
that's true.
And we're running interviews that Discord participants are, with each other. That's and, fair.
That's fair. It's well,
and to your about what we do. So
yeah, to your original point though, I can't thank you all enough. Seeing familiar names come up in the stream, you know who you are. People.
I won't repeat them because I don't want to forget anybody.
No, I won't repeat them either. That's why I didn't even say the first one to my mind because, but you know who you are, and it was just, it's just really, I think we're both really, really proud of the community that you all have built around the podcast, and I didn't anticipate we were going to talk about this, but it was just nice to see you all come on and say hello and check out what we've been doing. Obviously, we're invested in it and biased toward it, right, and passionate about it. But it was just nice to share it with people. And I know people have wondered what the heck we've been doing all this time.
Yeah.
So it's a weird
it's also, it's been a year and a half as well since we worked on it. So
we've been doing co-dev for a while.
We've been doing other stuff. So it's also nice for us just to be like, oh yeah, we did make a really good thing. Wouldn't it be nice if we could finish it? Anyway, so any of you out there who've got money you want to invest in a independent game studio, just send me email. There'll be a link for that in the show notes as well. All right, let's get to Papers, Please, and then to Cart Life. We didn't talk about topics about Papers, Please, so I'm just going to throw to you to get started, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I have notes for him. Well, so I've been fired.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I got one of that was the next ending. I think I've had 4-ish maybe endings, but the one I remember the most was being fired. Yeah, so from a notes perspective, so I'm still playing. I don't know how hard it is to actually. I don't know what completing this game means exactly, and I'm not necessarily asking you to answer, but it's a really what's an analogy that I'm trying to think of? It's not as this is going to sound reductive, but I don't mean for it to sound that way. But like a choose your own adventure book. Yeah, I think this has come up on the podcast before. Where
it's a game with 20 endings, I believe. So it is. Yeah. It does definitely have
similar to that, right? Yeah, it's got that sort of branching. But I was, which I think I've admitted on the podcast, I was one of those dum-dums as a kid who was like, no, forget this. I'm not gonna do what you tell me to do. I'm gonna read it from end to end, and I'm gonna kind of piece together what the heck's going on here. Obviously, it was the worst way to read those books. It made no sense usually, and then by the end, I was not fulfilled. And so the reason I bring this up is that there's a side of me with this game that is really fascinating to me because, yes, I do want to quote unquote finish it, which I think I can see where the story's going with the coup and rebellion or whatever, right? And it's building up. Oh, and then I got to use the code breaking stuff and like all the mysteries happening, which is really cool and really.
It's really cool how deep this game goes. To be
more and more is piled on. All the different variations they bring in with what the visitors are, the visitors / immigrants, are bringing as far as like sometimes they bring, there's this one person that brought 2 passports and they accidentally put both of them on the table and they're like, oh, sorry, I forgot. That was a mistake. And they take one back and they're like, wait a second.
Wait a minute.
So great little moments like that. But there's a side of me is like, yes, I want to see it through probably, the last ending, which is ending 20. But there's a side of me that's like, no, maybe my version, like a choose your own adventure book, was this version that I chose. I made these decisions And the one where I got fired, and the reason that I got fired was because I accepted the money from the rebellion. I don't know if
Right.
you've done that before.
I
Probably have.
have, yeah, I have. I
Yeah,
mean,
and I was like,
I've done an awful lot of this game in the past. I haven't done everything this time,
yeah,
but when I
right.
originally played it, I did. Like I said, I had it on the iPad, which is a great experience, and I did so much of this game because it was a thing I could just like literally just have my iPad, next to the bed and pick it
Hmm.
up and play some Papers, Please before bed. And I've spent a lot of time in this game in the past.
It
Not,
seems
not
like a
so much
really
this
good
time.
iPad game. I think I saw somebody on the Discord talk about that. They played it. It might have been Mark. I don't remember who, but that because I can see the way
The
just the shuffling of
tactility,
papers.
yeah, it's so good. It's so
Yeah,
good.
it seems like
I'm
touchscreen
surprised there's not more of this stuff, right? I mean, it's to
on
well,
on.
just in general, but
Yeah, yeah.
especially on the iPad. I get why not, like just because of what game playing market looks like, on what is effectively mobile, even if it's not with an iPad. Um,
Yeah.
it's a kind of a gray area, especially the way iPad OS has been going over the last I don't know few years. But anyway, my point being there's um, there's an experience there that some developers have tapped into that get the tactility and like the large screen makes it really really work. Like the Room, for example,
Hmm.
those games are great on the iPad where you're like
Hmm. Yeah.
dealing with this like physical quote unquote object, right? I mean, you're rotating it and you're like dragging things and clicking things and or space team, right? Is
Space
another
Team's
great
great.
example.
Yeah, The Room's great.
Yeah,
Gorogoa. Have you played Gorogoa
big
on the iPad?
Gorgo, but I played it on the PC. No,
Ah,
I
okay.
played it on. I might have played it on actually the console, where there is a touchpad technically on the controller. So I don't remember whether
Oh,
that includes it
interesting.
or
I
not.
wonder. Yeah,
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 I think it's mostly with the sticks, but I don't. I really don't specifically remember. I played it a few years ago.
yeah, yeah. But it's this game. The simulation of that desktop. And just kind of
Yeah,
like and they even or he even um they make certain pieces of paper large enough to where you can't have them. You have to shuffle
you
them
have to
aside.
move them around. Yeah,
So it's just really really well
I
thought
can't
through
tell
in
you
that.
how many times I've accidentally dragged the rule book off of my working
Yeah,
area and in back onto the desk and back into its space when I wanted to drag like an entry pass or
yeah,
permit
yeah,
or whatever. It's like, oh, I accidentally grabbed the book. I think part of that is I don't know if that mouse down there is dying or something, but it's it's a pain in the neck. I'm always having issues with it lately. So
yeah.
um
I mean,
it's yeah.
I'm technically playing with the touchscreen on the Steam
Yeah,
Deck, so I
right,
guess it's
right.
close,
Yeah.
but it's a little small. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like
That's
when those
yeah, tough
engineers
for
show up and you have those cards, those business cards you're supposed to give them,
yeah.
and I'm trying to shuffle through all the papers to get to the business card, which is tiny
Yeah.
underneath all the papers, and throw it to give it to them. And
Oh yeah, I mean, not to mention you've like piled up, occasional citations, I guess they're called. It's like, and they take up a huge amount of space on your wherever they are, and you're like, you have no place to put them, and you have some because sometimes you're breaking the rules, etc. I mean, it's
yeah,
wild. I mean, it's just that. I mean, we're not doing takeaways tonight, but clearly, a takeaway from both these
yeah,
games is that.
yeah.
So
Right. Space economy I think, is a really cool concept that I think a lot of people don't think about very much when they're playing games. Like, just to give a modern
I mean, it's
example of
it's
another.
like inventory management,
Yeah.
but
Right.
here it's done in a way that's way more representative of a real thing. Like inventory management is like, oh, I've got a bunch of blocks that I have to fit armor and three swords
Yeah.
and two guns or
That's a
whatever.
good point. Yeah.
It's like, but here it's like, no, this is how much space this thing takes. Like it's not some abstraction. It's like, no, literally, if you open a book onto your desk, like I have a sketchbook here. If I opened it, I would not also have space for my microphone and the stack of books it sits on because
Yeah.
I wouldn't have any place to put it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's a great space to do things.
Yeah. And the inventory one is an interesting point to bring up too, because so often inventory systems get a bad rap because people are frustrated by the limitations,
Right.
because like, oh, why can't I just carry everything? Why or one that hits close to home for you, encumbrance systems. Is like,
Right.
why?
Yeah.
What? Why do you have what is this? And okay, maybe if you're a hardcore sim, but Elder Scrolls or Fallout, like, why do you need that? Anyway, don't get me started. But
Well, that's why we have a modding community.
exactly, yeah, mod it out. But the game I was going to bring up that kind of reminds me of some of the spatial design that's happening here, ironic, which is not ironic, just sort of out of left field comparison, is I play a lot of Marvel Snap, and I won't go too far because I could talk a lot about that game. But
I bet
there's
you could.
one brilliant move they made, because a lot of those folks made Hearthstone before that, which was much more traditional kind of Magic based kind of clone or
Right.
simplified
Yeah.
Magic.
Yeah.
But this one,
Yu-Gi-Oh or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, they have locations in Marvel Snap that cards slot into, and only 4 cards can be in each of those locations, and you have to win the location, two of the 3 locations to win the match. But that when you only have 4 slots, the spatial design and management of that is really critical, and it's really funny. It's been funny to me how critical it is to the design of that card game. Certain other card games, it's like if you're
It
playing in
makes
real life.
it makes me think of Netrunner, which is
Which I haven't played.
oh, okay, yeah, but it's so it's a cyber hacker
I
against
know of it, yeah, but I just haven't
against a
played it.
corporation, right? And it's an asymmetrical game, which it's the sort of thing I really like. I mean, they both have basically different things they're trying to achieve,
Oh, cool.
and the corporation has basically data centers, and it can technically have as many as it wants, but in reality, it can't, because it has to guard them. So it's like you only have so many cards in your hand, and so like the systems work together of like, well, I pick up this many cards, I might have cards that give me more cards or whatever, but in general, it's like a similar sort of economy of like there's only so much of this resource
Yeah.
to go around to generate these data centers. Basically your data centers are your hand, your discard pile, your deck, and you want to protect all of those with information countermeasures or ICE, and then you create additional data centers for agendas you're trying to promote. And it's the same thing where it's like, here's a space. I can only have so much of this space because I can only protect so many, because I only have so many cards at one time. It's all kind of in different similar spaces. These are just kind of divergent evolutionary paths. But card games are a great example of this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously lineage in board games and card games. I haven't played Magic in a while, but I just remember times when I was playing it a lot that, there would be times when I would have a lot of cards, just kind of out and doing different things. And,
Yep.
It's like, I just really appreciate the economy and the elegance of what Snap's doing. Obviously they're doing it for phone as well, so that's part of their motivation.
I'm in the credits of some of the early expansions to Magic the Gathering.
I know. Yeah.
In fact, I got a letter in the mail from somebody from, I think, Germany a couple of months ago, and I forgot about it. We were talking about it now, and it just reminded me. But somebody has tracked down all the people who are in the credits of a particular expansion and sent them cards to sign. So I have to sign this card and send it.
What?
Enclosed like a special self-addressed stamped envelope for me to just put in the mail. I just have to sign this card and send it back. And I've been meaning to do it because I was going to write a letter and say, hey, this was a fun time in my life. But
that's cool. That's cool. Yeah.
Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Well, yeah. I mean, what led me to this was the citations comment that you made in this game, and I think that he could have made the citations even bigger, and it would have been hilarious, right? Because it's like it's a punishment, right? That you got the citations, you messed up, and then the fact that you had this big, citation you have to deal with. So it's just a funny, I guess,
make them worse over time, like.
Oh, exactly. Right. They get bigger.
Some multiplayer games where like the big head mode, where every time you kill somebody, your head gets bigger or whatever. It's like, it would kind of be in that vein if he did something like that. I don't know, implementation wise for him, like I can't imagine the additional effort and wanting to do that.
No, but it just reminds me of the different ways the different knobs that you have to tune as a designer, and the different ways that you can, incentivize and disincentivize certain behaviors, right? And it's like using space and size like that is not a common thing I think designers think about. So for me, it's like a mini takeaway. Not that we're doing takeaways. It's like it's a new kind of, not new, but like it reminds me of something that to consider.
Yeah.
HUDs are in the same category. Like there's a lot of different things that a screen has space, and that's just a constant thing. So you're always grappling with this. But it's interesting takeaway from something I just would not have anticipated. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I got fired for, basically the um, some agency investigated my income,
Oh, yeah.
and they're like, "You have
Wait
way
a
too much
minute.
money in your
Yeah.
bank,"
Yeah.
and then they
We want you basically to have to take this job. You don't, you're getting to a point where you don't have to take this job. And so clearly there's a
right,
problem here. Yeah.
exactly.
I can't
I gotten a
imagine any modern parallels to such a thing, but
right, exactly. Oh boy. Yeah, well, I got a better apartment, right? We had more money coming in.
right.
So the point I wanted to make here, and then I'll shut up about it, but the the thing that threw me for a loop on this, for this game, that again is so great. I'm so happy we're playing it as a contrast to so many of the other things we play, because it's so different from anything we've played. Um, when I had gotten that windfall from the rebellion, I'm calling them, I don't know what else to call them, the subversive group that's trying to take over, take back the government. It was like
Yeah,
nine hundred
let's just call them
dollars.
the Democrats.
Okay, yeah. All right, fine. I'm okay with that. Um, if only. So it was like $900, and I was like, "That is a lot of money in this game." I was like, "I
Right.
cannot
Yeah.
believe I have that much money." And
Yeah.
so to
Typically
my
on a day you're making like 45
right,
or
right, and
35, so
so in my designer brain, I was like, "Oh, okay. So this is how, if you're in a trough of money, this is a way that they're helping you catch up to some of your mistakes. So it's a balancing mechanism." But not in this game.
nope.
in in this game,
In this game,
what
it's just another trap.
right, he wants you to think about these decisions
Yeah.
very seriously and realize that yes, you can take this money, but you work for and live in a country that keeps track of this stuff,
Right.
and
Oh, I I
it will
cannot
come
wait
back
to
to
get to
bite you.
the we have an email to read, that I'll be reading at the end of the episode, so stick around for mailbox if that's not a thing people normally
Nice.
listen to, um, that directly addresses this sort of thing.
Okay,
So,
great. Yeah. So it's just
so yeah.
subversive, just him taking the preconceived notions of players in this new context, and just putting everything on its head, which I've really enjoyed.
Yeah, no, he's fantastic at that. The other topic I definitely wanted to hit, and this was one that I think you had mentioned in pre-show last week, or 2 weeks ago, but we didn't get to, is the save system. And what brought it to mind was when you said choose your own adventure, because it
Mm,
basically feels like having the opportunity to go back to an earlier decision point in your choose your own adventure. Because the way it works, this is not something I had explored last week, so I didn't really know what your topic was going to be about, but now I'm like, oh, I see. So basically, what you're seeing in the save system, just to bring people up to speed if they haven't played, um, you have a screen, and it basically you have a save that's going left to right in days. So every day it basically saves. However, at any point when you start a game, you can just play from any point on that timeline, and it just splits off to a new timeline. So you have basically, it sort of looks like a subway, where a line splits. So it's like a line is going left to right, and then there's like a diagonal off of it, and it's like, and here's the new line, where you decided to split off and do a new save. And
it's
so,
the multiverse.
yeah, exactly.
You're
It
creating.
really, and you can literally go back to any point anywhere, and you either create a new universe in the form of a new save, or you're continuing. Well, no, I guess you're always splitting off unless you're at sort of the end point of one where you're just continuing that main through line. So it is a super
It's
cool,
fascinating.
yeah, way to do a save. I experienced it because I was like, okay, well, I know that I had basically played perfectly, in the sense of not having made any quote unquote mistakes by to day 2, but I knew I had messed up quite a lot after that.
Mm.
I will start from day 2 just because I want to be in a position where I can make some of the trade-offs we talked about last week, where it's like, I know I'm going to get a citation for this, but I want to let the person in.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I will have additional citations available to me because I've done basically quote unquote perfectly up to this point. So I haven't had a lot of warnings, so I can afford it basically. And so that I could see some of the things you were talking about last week. I mean, last week or 2 weeks ago, I was basically like, I just want to get good at the mechanics so I can be making decisions, which is, I think, one of the places where this game and Cart Life really intersect a lot, is getting good at the minutia, so that you can quote unquote make choices. Here you're like making choices about who to let in, and there you're like, you get a little bit more wiggle room. I think Cart Life is an even deeper empathy game in a way, because I think it shows us people we're more likely to have seen and not just imagining.
Yeah.
So I do think that there's a lot there, to think about. But anyway, I just wanted to
No,
kind
I
of
think
the save
no,
stuff.
the save system I think is really clever, and I think it's also generous.
It
Like,
is, yeah.
he didn't have to set it up that way,
Right. He
and
could have said
like,
start over.
yeah, to my earlier story about getting fired, like, I definitely am going to go back to the point before I took that money,
Right, yeah.
which was like day
Or you could
6
just,
or 8 or
start
something.
that day over, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go from there, but it's a very generous way to give you this sort of like, um there's TV shows and movies and stuff where it's like, what is, the one where like, oh, that's not how it happened. This is how it
Right,
happened,
right,
and then they
right.
show
Well,
you a
Prince of
different
Persia,
perspective.
Sands of Time.
Prince of Persia, yeah, that's a perfect
Yeah.
example. I
The other
couldn't think
the
of.
other one I think of is, the multiple save system in The Last Express. So we're talking about the same creator
That's what
there.
I was gonna bring that up too.
Yeah,
Last
yeah.
Express had the same
With the
thing. Yeah,
eggs, yeah, yeah.
yeah, very clever. Yeah, so I
The
wonder,
different colored Fabergé eggs, yeah.
did we just find a connection between the Last Express and
And Papers,
Papers,
Please? We
Please?
sure did. We sure, done and
uh,
dusted. I mean, how can we, surpass that on this podcast of ours? I wouldn't be surprised to learn though that he had played that game. Or other games that had that kind of mechanic. It's really funny because you go from games. I mean, this is a game that's primarily on PCs, even though it did get ported a lot of places, and I'm sure its save file is all of like 2K. So like, take all this to make as many saves as you want. But the thing I'm really uh, appreciative there is, like, I've played, we play modern games, that we don't talk about on the podcast. And it's like, here, you may save in one of these 3 slots, and it's like, here it's like, save is like, yeah, you know what? You do you. Disk space is cheap. If you want to save a billion times or do a billion different versions of this, branch point from this one through line you've been doing, go crazy. And you're right. I mean, I appreciate that as a generous act. That is, it's a pain to do stuff like that. So it's, especially, I mean, it is one of those things where, um, there's certain things that we have to do in every game, and they're like, I saw there's a tweet that went around from years ago, where it's like, one of the things no one told me about making games is, like, you have to make the whole game, um, and like menus and save systems and, like, I don't know, whatever. There's a million things that you have to do that you're just like, yeah, that's not very fun, but you have to do it, because every game needs, single player game has to have a save system or whatever. And it's just like, yep, that's just the thing you're biting off every time. And to innovate in that area is
Mm,
just like, what a
yeah.
choice, and I think only indies, tend to do those sorts of things. Really, it's not entirely true. Like, I think, in some ways, Near Replicant did a funny variation on that. Or not, Near Automata. It's not Replicant. Automata, that does something like that, where it's like, the save is, There was an interesting thing happens with the save. I'll just say that. And whatever. I mean, there's just like there
Mm-hmm.
are games that do it, but it's rare to be in the AAA space, and I'm not sure I would even include Automata in that. It is definitely indie spirit kind of game. So
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. There's actually a chapter in the Spelunky book that
mm-hmm.
he talks about finishing games,
Yep.
and which I appreciated his perspective on that. Yeah, yeah. This is
Yeah.
It's been
That
looking
last
at.
10%, it's like 90%.
Yeah, he talks about that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
All right. Well, I mean, do you have anything else you want to bring up with Papers, Please? Those are two topics I knew we had to hit, but
yeah, no, I don't think so.
okay.
I do want to see how much further I can get, but like I said earlier, there's a side of me that's like, my story ended in prison. In
Yeah.
fact, they put my whole family in prison with me, so
Right.
or in
Yeah.
different cells.
Because
So it's like,
you're all responsible.
yeah,
I mean, you might all. Who knows how far the subversion has spread? Your whole neighborhood might have to be jailed. We were talking a little bit about The Walking Dead in pre-show, and I just want to pull that in as well as a game where, to your point, the developers specifically were saying, "Don't play it again. Like you'll ruin it for yourself if you see
yeah.
like how it works." And
Commit to your
you
decision.
commit to your decisions. This is the the way you played the game, which was a bold thing to say. Like that's a bold thing to say, and I don't know if they would say it now when it's like, well, if you can play a game in under 2 hours, you could return it, or whatever to Steam. But but at the time, it was definitely a bold statement of like, we really think you should just like play it, enjoy it, and then be have that playthrough be the one. So I respect your decision. It would not be what I would do, but if that's what you want to do, you're choosing your own adventure, Tim, I guess is my point.
I had a really hard time not going back and Walking Dead
Yeah.
and playing differently, but I did stick to what they
Here's the
wanted.
thing. So I played it on the iPad because I was traveling at the time, and like that's what I had. So, and I was teaching a class, and it was one of the you know weeks we talked about that game and some other indies, and um, so I played the first 4 episodes, and at the end of the fourth episode, I had made it so I had like a pretty good crew. Like I think I had saved everybody I could. It was like so I had a whole thing, and then there was a bug with the save going from 4 to 5, and I started 5 with nobody, as if I had saved nobody, and it was such a disruptive, like
Mm.
it just crushed my experience with the game. I was like, I know this probably didn't happen on the
I
PC.
remember that bug. No, I think it happened multiple places.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was just like, I was so upset. I was like,
Yeah.
because I was playing it all kind of at once, and not episodically. And I just was like crushed when it didn't remember my choices, because the whole game was like, it's going to
Mhm.
remember, you did that.
Yeah, that's a
And
big deal for that.
yeah,
That's a
for that.
great. I forgot about that bug, but it became a little bit of an infamous bug, to be
Yeah.
honest.
That's a bad bug.
And we know some of the people that worked on it, so I know they were bummed about it. But that is a great example of a bug that impacts the experience in a really profound way because
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
so counter to the point of the game.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can't fix every bug, but some bugs
Some bugs you
you
got
gotta
no matter what
hurt
it
more
takes.
than others. Yeah.
Yeah, and it had been out a while at that point, so that's it was even more like, oh my god, they could have like, it's been a year since this bug was introduced. Anyway, let's not talk down other games that we're not talking about, I
No, no,
guess.
no,
But
no, no.
but it was definitely interesting how if you don't sustain the player's belief in that choose your own adventure kind of way, it can really break the experience. Anyway, the next game we were going to talk about, and this is another game that is definitely kind of in this empathy game space. It's also very related in sort of the general feel of the game. I think it's kind of curious because Tim and I actually played different quote unquote cart lives. I will give a brief history of the game. It was originally released in 2010, but its Steam release was in 2013, and that's also when it was admitted to the IGF, and it ultimately won, I think, the top award, the Seamus McNally Award, for the IGF in 2014. Interestingly, the day after he had won that award, and for those who haven't been to GDC, the Game Developers Conference, which is where the IGF awards are held, as well as the Game Developers Choice Awards in one big super ceremony, one of the nights, there's not only is the IGF sort of a thing where these games are promoted and you like could go download them at demos or buy them on Steam or whatever, but they actually are also at there's like a place in, or there used to be, I haven't been to Game Developers Conference in a while, but there's like an actual spot near the expo where you can just go and play the IGF games. So it literally is kind of like a little festival, with these games available to play to, people who walk by. And after Richard Hoffmeyer won the award, let's say on Wednesday night, Thursday morning, he had replaced in his station at the IGF, it's basically one computer per person. He had replaced his game with Howling Dogs, which is the Porpentine game we played as part of our text adventure series in 2023. So for those who remember that, we played Howling Dogs, which was a Twine game. So it was basically HTML browser game that kind of explored different ways to use text in that kind of format. So a hyperlink game, I guess you'd say. And so he's been kind of a countercultural figure from the beginning. And I think of 2013 as the actual release, even though it was available earlier. 2013 is when he kind of made it more available to the world and was kind of way more visible, and of course was entered in the IGF. So all of that to say, I'm largely choosing that so that we don't review 2013 again and don't review 2010 at all. So there you go.
I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is me avoiding some work.
Okay, fair. Well, but then it doesn't stop there.
No.
The history.
It's a whole saga with this game.
Because it no longer is on Steam.
Correct.
Which I played it on itch.io. I guess this is just some of the stuff he does, looking this up myself, because I was trying to figure out, okay, well, how am I going to play this? Brett has it on Steam because you got it while it was on Steam.
Then, yeah.
But it's been delisted. And another company was going to publish it for him or with him or something. And there was some game-breaking bug or some shenanigans happened. And so he eventually released the game,
Open source.
Open source. It's an open source game now, and I just went and got it for free on itch.io to play it myself. So it's an open source game now.
Yeah.
So I don't.
Yeah. He had made it open source, I think, before even these things happened, which was with Ad Hoc, one of the founders of Ad Hoc, which interestingly is partially co-founders from Telltale, and they have some of the I think they have the Wolf Among Us license, although they're not directly continuing it yet. I think it's kind of in their plans, or they've talked about it. I don't have that to hand, so I don't remember. But Ad Hoc, one of the founders of Ad Hoc, was particularly enamored of Cart Life, and in part because nobody's really ever followed up Cart Life with other stuff in this kind of vein. Cart Life, so it was made by Richard Hoffmeyer, a solo developer. He made it in the Adventure Game Studio, I believe it's called, which is a sort of I think it's open source now, but it was originally something you could go and buy, in the sort of late 90s. It was meant to be able to make adventure games like LucasArts or Sierra games, point and clicks. And this game is, it's not a point and click adventure. And in fact, I think it won the year it came out for not an adventure game category, but made with Adventure Game Studio. The Adventure Game Studio people have a sort of like awards every year for products made with Adventure Game Studio. And I think since it's been open sourced as well, like people are kind of carrying it forward and doing things, making it support things that it didn't originally support. So this game's definitely already kind of in a weird space from so many factors. like an open source engine. The game itself has been open sourced. I don't know what that looks like at all. I'm kind of curious. I might go look before we talk next week. But what it is a in the full release, it's 3 storylines of characters. I think in the original kind of freeware release, it was 2 of those stories, one of which Tim played and one of which I was playing, and a third one that was locked unless you paid for it. And now I think you just can play all 3, with any version of the game that you get. It's basically it's stories of people who are in kind of dire financial straits, and trying to overcome them by running a small business the size of a cart life. In my case, it's a newspaper stand, and in Tim's case, it's literally like a coffee cart, right? Kind of like a little push cart, that sells coffee. I played Andrus, who is an immigrant from Ukraine, although I think he is actually Estonian by birth. So he's not only immigrated to the United States and Georgetown, he has emigrated previously from Estonia to Ukraine. So he's been in search of a better life. This game, of course, came out before any of the Ukrainian conflicts of the 21st century. You want to tell me a little bit about your story? Because I probably should have tried that one, but I actually think it's more difficult to play even than Andrus's story. So congratulations, you played the harder one. Can you tell me a little bit about hers? Is it Melanie, I think is her name?
Melanie Emberly, maybe, or something like that. Yeah. So she is in the process of getting a divorce. And in a few days from when the game begins, so she's living with her sister in, I think, their childhood home, and her daughter Laura or Lauren,
I think it's Laura,
living in the attic room up there. And so there's really interesting dialogue between the sister and the main character. This is like their childhood home, maybe, that the sister has inherited or lives in now. But maybe one of the reasons why this is a more difficult one is not only do you have to, secure your cart, get your cart going, but you have to take care of your daughter. And also there is a custody battle going to be happening within the first week. I don't know how time works in this game yet, but within the first week. So you actually
very quickly.
Part of her goal, I guess on the character select screen, they tell you kind of the goal for the character.
Yeah.
And part of that goal is to, basically build a life for yourself enough so you can maintain custody of your child. I believe.
Yeah, the stakes are dire in each of the storylines. For Andrus, he has saved enough to come to the U.S. He has enough basically to buy this newspaper stand, and then he has almost nothing left over. So you start with so the difference between them. There's a couple differences. One is, and one of the reasons why it's considered, I think, to be a little easier is you actually basically start with the cart. In Andrus's,
oh no! Wait till I tell you my story about that.
It's a whole thing, I know. Because I think I played a little Melanie back when a decade ago, and in Melanie's you don't start with the cart. However, Andrus each character has basically quote unquote an addiction, and in Andrus's case, he's addicted to cigarettes. He also has a cat he's caring for, but he's addicted to cigarettes, which is a problem. And that you have to, because you only have one cigarette left, I think, when you start the game, and it's like, okay, well, among the other things I have to buy with the like $200 I have left from having bought this newspaper business, you have to make sure you get cigarettes, and he has to smoke on a kind of regular basis, otherwise he will get a coughing fit where he can't do anything. He can only buy cigarettes and smoke. So like if you hit that limitation, it's like it becomes very problematic.
Melanie has one too, which is interesting.
Well, and she has her sister, her daughter rather, which she has to pick up her daughter from school every day, and they basically have to have some interaction. she loves her daughter. I think that's how the addiction, quote unquote, addiction is framed. It's really kind of a weakness. Addiction is kind of a strong word. But it's like an extenuating circumstance each character has
Does he
that they have
does
to
he
deal
have a
with.
hunger thing as well? Hunger.
All of them have hunger.
Okay.
All of them have hunger, food needs, and then sort of dependence. Now, one of the easier things about Melanie is that she can always be fed by her sister.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's like the trade-off in difficulty.
Which I learned the hard way. Yeah.
Yeah, but probably by slowly starving to death and not being able to do anything.
Yeah, this game is not what I thought it was going to be, and I don't know why. I had preconceived notions. I think it's because everyone tended to. Well, when I heard people talk about it, they were always talking about the cart part of the game mostly.
Right.
Kind of the simulation part of
and
it,
and the little mini games and things. Yeah.
Life simulation. Yeah. But there's a lot more adventure game here than I realized. Right, like dialogue, walking around the world with the arrow keys. Like it's got that perspective of like an old LucasArts game. So you can kind of move around spaces, which I was really surprised about. And so that was catching me off guard. But the reason I haven't gotten very far, obviously time, I've been way too busy over this past time. But
in your personal life and not in the game.
Yeah. Sorry, in personal life, but there's a lot of life simulation happening as well. Like you go to sleep, you brush your teeth, there's all these sort of, like you said earlier, mundane things that you do. You have to eat, you have to sleep, and then there's all these other things per character that are specific. But the other thing, so as everyone knows, I don't like go deeply into tutorials, and I don't read a lot of the, like, if they have like a FAQ or something in the game that are like, okay, do this and then this or whatever. I try to see how far I can get without reading those. But in this case, I don't know if the information was there or if I just I didn't find the right information, but I didn't know how to get my cart. So There was a lot of like exploring to try to figure out, okay, I don't have my cart. What do I do to get that? I think you can talk to your sister and she gives you some pointers, which I'll talk about next episode. There's some hilarious stuff when you talk to her about, like, she says, do you want me to give you any pointers or help? And that is a whole hilarious thing. Anyway, so while I eventually figured out that I need to go to the court to get a permit before I can get my cart, I'm at the court and I go to the window. Nobody's there. And I say, I need my permit. The lady says, what number did you take? Oh, I didn't pick up a number. Okay. So I go and I pick up a number. It's number 12. They're on number 2 right now. The screen says number 2. And I go back and I say, okay, I have my ticket. She says, why? What number are you? I'm 12. Okay, well, you have to wait till it's your turn. Then you have the option to say, but wait, there's nobody here other than me. And she's like, yeah, I'm sorry, you have to wait your turn. So I had to sit down and wait from 2 to 12, which was like whatever, probably 20 to 30 seconds or something, or maybe a minute. And I didn't eat breakfast. So by the time I got to the window, it was 12. I was like, good, great. I waited. Nobody else was there. 2 through 12, nobody was taking those tickets. Very bureaucratic, right? Like, obviously he's trying to simulate that experience and DMV or whatever. And and I'm too hungry to ask questions. Then I get a phone alert that it's 4:00 and I have to go pick up my daughter. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yep.
And so now I don't know where she is. I don't know where the school is. And I'm starving. And so I went home, and by the time I got home, it was like 9 p.m. And there's this whole wonderfully tragic conversation with the sister. We're like, where have you been? I can't believe you left her out there. I feel horrible.
Yeah.
I feel like the worst person.
This is definitely a feel bad game. Like,
yeah,
it is.
I'm the villain.
Yeah. It's built around that. Well, I wouldn't say that, Tim. So, and probably, this will kind of be the last point. We do have a couple of emails this week. One of the things about this game is, it's meant to point out systemic injustice,
Yeah, right. Got it.
and
It's not Melanie's fault. Yeah.
it's not Melanie's fault. I mean, it is your fault, Tim, but
Yeah, it is my fault. I'm the villain.
you're the villain, Tim, as a participant in this system. But no, I mean, it's meant to be like, the fact that it's quite difficult and opaque is a huge part of the point. Like, if you came in and this game was kind of easy and like you just kind of made your cart and it was kind of like playing a Sims game or something like that, it would entirely miss the point of what it's trying to get across.
Yeah,
Not that The Sims didn't have its own messages, because it certainly did. We talked about those. But this sim game, this life sim game, is meant to say, do you really know how tough it is out there to be like an immigrant or a woman, who's recently divorced or getting a divorce or whatever, and like how the system works against you if you don't have resources to fall back on? I don't think you do. Here they are. And one of the things about Richard Hoffmeyer is that he has done a lot of, I mean, he hasn't done the specific jobs, I don't think, in Cart Life, but he has done a lot of the jobs where you're like, I wouldn't want to do that job. Like, I mean, I feel very privileged, every day that I get to do my job. How much I love it and how fulfilling it is. And like, there are a lot of lives out there that are really like pretty rough. And that is what this game is meant to be about, which is why I put it in that kind of empathy game.
Yeah, totally. It hits it really well. Yeah.
There's actually a pretty decent movie that came to mind. It's an interesting movie that I saw this summer at a film festival I go to with a friend, called Toe, that has Rose Byrne, which is based on a true story. It's from your neck of the woods. I'm pretty sure they're in Seattle, where this woman is kind of in a similar position. She's had a rough time. She's had issues with addiction, and her car got towed, and she was actually legally parked. It got stolen, and then they dumped it somewhere, and it got towed. And it's basically the story of her battle to get her car back, and like what her life became. And she was living in her car. So it's like her battle to get that back, and and it's the same sort. It could be another episode in Cart Life, in that, like, when you're describing I was trying to get a permit. I was this number in line. She actually has somebody in that kind of experience do her a kindness, sort of a quote unquote bureaucrat. Like, we say bureaucrat like it's this horrible thing. It's just people who fill a role, where there's not a lot of
is the other side of that window.
And like, yeah, exactly. I was going exactly there next.
Okay,
yeah. No, not at all. But like,
we're playing both sides of this story.
Both sides of these stories, and it's like, it's tough for everybody in these systems. Is really the point of these empathy games, and it's why these games belong really together to play. So you can get good at Cart Life, and that's actually a different part of the story that we'll talk about next week. If either of us get good at it, it's not easy, but you can get good at Cart Life, and that's also part of the point. But we'll talk about that next time.
Cool.
All right. Well, so that's our little introduction to Cart Life, and sort of finishing off. We didn't even get close to where we'd be able to do takeaways. I don't know why we ever thought that would be a thing. So we want to turn to a couple of emails we got. I sent one. These are, of course, sent to devgameclub@gmail.com. I sent the first one over to you, Tim. I think it's fairly brief, but it's mostly directed at me.
Okay. Books from Brett. Oh, of course. If books is in the subject, then...
Yep.
From Max. Hey guys, I'm a big fan of the podcast. I'm currently in the process of writing and recording a soundtrack. Ooh, cool. To an RPG computer game. What? Dark Cards of Candlewood due out next year. All right. We'll look for that. Even though your podcasts aren't really music focused, your discussions and general recommendations have provided a lot of inspiration and helped me find drive. Thank you for everything. However, the reason I emailed was to ask Brett if he reads fantasy, and if so, could he list his favorites? Dear Brett, in parentheses, Dear Brett, if you're not a fantasy guy, keen to hear any other recommendations too. I am interested to hear this because I think, anyway.
Yeah, I'm not. It's actually, I don't read a lot of fantasy these days, so I'll try to give it's not that I read none, but I read relatively little, especially compared to when I was growing up, which is when I kind of just like burned out on it. Just like, I've read a lot of fantasy. And so when I was a kid, I grew up reading things like the Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, The Unbeliever, Raymond Feist's books, Piers Anthony, like even younger. You probably read some of those, Tim. I will say as well, like I have no idea if any of that stuff holds up at all. Like earlier than that, it was like Lloyd Alexander and like C.S. Lewis, like or Narnia. And then in basically college / early grad school, I was kind of drifting away from all of this stuff, but I did read things like the Belgariad and like the subsequent series by David Eddings. And unfortunately, I looked him up today because like, didn't he write some other stuff? And I learned some lousy stuff about David Eddings. So if you want to leave that pure, don't look up David Eddings. The Wheel of Time series, with Robert Jordan, who died while he was writing the series, which is why I haven't started the Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. When he finishes it, maybe I'll read it. And then Dave Duncan was somebody else I read around that time. And then I basically stopped reading fantasy. I won't say I didn't read any fantasy, but I read relatively little. But in the last handful of years, I actually have gone back to it. I read some Ursula K. Le Guin, her Earthsea books, which are aimed at younger readers, but I had missed them when I was a kid, and I was really curious about them. When she passed away, I actually did like a complete reread of like everything she had written. So I was basically doing as part of that. I can recommend, so I recommend anything by Ursula K. Le Guin, honestly. And then Robert Jackson Bennett I think he's south of the Mason-Dixon line like me. And he wrote 2 trilogies, and he's working on a series now. And I've liked basically all of those that I've read. So one trilogy is called the Divine Cities trilogy. It's all like city of this, city of that. And the Founders trilogy, which I thought was really cool, is all about like inscribing runes on things to kind of make them disobey the laws of the universe. That was kind of how the magic system worked. It was super cool. It was really neat. I did a complete read of Discworld in the last decade, which is Terry Pratchett's series. Highly recommend those. I think he is one of the most humane and funny writers of fantasy I've ever encountered. But he is genuinely humane, and I definitely commend him to anyone. Adrian Tchaikovsky, who I think mostly writes science fiction, but did have a series called Shadows of the Apt, which I read. There's a lot of books in that series. I've only read the first 5 or so. I think they start to have diminishing returns kind of by that point, but I did really enjoy at least the first few. I went back and read Robin Hobb, her Farseer trilogy. I think that goes back to the 90s. And Martha Wells, who writes Murderbot, which is also a TV show now. Yeah, but she so in addition to that, I mean, if you broaden fantasy out to include science fiction, I do read some science fiction as well. I'll mention that in a minute. But she wrote a series of books called The Books of the Raxura, which was about this sort of winged fantasy, humanoids that I thought were actually pretty decent as well. So I recommend that and her Murderbot Diaries. I haven't read other stuff by her because it's not available in my library. So I just haven't got, there's plenty to read without going out and buying a ton of books. And then to expand out to science fiction, I just wanted to do that to mention specifically Lois McMaster Bujold, who wrote the Vorkosigan saga, which is like, I don't know, it's easily a dozen books about Miles Vorkosigan and his mother and father and like his brother, and they're really good, kind of space opera-y, but every book's a little bit different. She is really, really good, and I would highly recommend her to anyone. She's written a little bit of fantasy, and I'm actually reading those now, but she doesn't have a lot of it, so I would recommend those as well. But she's one of those like master craftspeople, who just writes really good plots, really good characters, and you're like, yeah, this is fantasy, but it's really good. It's just like, it's really top shelf stuff. So anyway, I mostly actually read sort of crime and I don't know, contemporary or literary fiction. Those are kind of the areas, crime broadly. So like police procedurals and detective stuff and mysteries. But I over the last say decade, those are a bunch of things that I've read and enjoyed. How about you,
Wow.
sir? How much fantasy have you read lately? I didn't mention
uh,
Tolkien because, come on, obviously,
yeah, yeah, obviously.
The
No,
Hobbit.
I
The
haven't.
Hobbit is probably my favorite book, and I know people would be like, "Not the Lord of the Rings." I'm like, "Nope." I read The Hobbit first and read it several. I've read it more than any other book in my life.
I think The Hobbit's better than Lord of the Rings,
I love
personally.
The Hobbit so much.
Yeah,
I do. It's just so warm,
I think
and
it's perfect book, maybe.
yeah, yeah, I love it.
Yeah. No, no, I haven't. You definitely gave Max a good list. So,
Yeah.
no, I actually haven't been reading fantasy for a while, other than the occasional Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. I am a John le Carre fan.
Oh
I
yeah.
spy stuff is usually what I read is
Oh,
spy
Lee
stuff.
Child would be another one I would add. Not the stuff he did with his brother, but the Jack Reacher stuff is really good as well. That's
Yeah,
not really
no,
spy, but
right, but
it's
adjacent. Yeah,
adjacent. Yeah.
yeah.
I'd put it under the kind of crime umbrella as well. He's not really a detective, but he sort of is.
Oh, he
So
totally. He's solving problems.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He's kind of a little more straightforward than most detectives, but if I put it that way. Anyway, thanks for asking. Good luck with your game and the music. And sorry we don't talk about music enough because it is such a big part of the games, and we just are not super competent at discussing it. I do have an email here as well, which I don't think has lots of questions, but it's got more like, well, I'll get to it. It's called Papers, Please, and Authenticity. It's from Claudiu. Hi, Brett and Tim. I wanted to share some thoughts on some aspects of Papers, Please that really hit home for me as someone born in a former communist country. Perhaps the most meaningful mechanic the game offers. I'm sorry, I may be mispronouncing your name, Claudiu. So apologies if I am. Perhaps the most meaningful mechanic the game offers are the choices made by the protagonist of the game. Just like he has to choose between keeping his family healthy or not, doing an injustice to someone crossing the border, many of my countrymen had to choose between joining the party and advancing in their careers, or their family living in a less comfortable life as a consequence of not doing so. Or maybe defecting to a Western country to a better life, but leaving some of your family behind in a now worse condition. I think you also talked about the government in the game expecting its citizens to have families, and this was not far fetched to me at all. Here, the quote family planning incentives ranged from declaring a heroine mother to anyone that had more than 3 children to a ban of all contraceptives and abortion just to make sure the country's population was growing. Another aspect that really resonated is the dehumanizing nature of the regime. My dad has stories of having to wake up at 3 a.m. to stand in line for hours, waiting for the stores to open before he got to work to get his allocated ratios of bread, milk, or eggs, and how he felt he would have done unthinkable things to someone who was trying to sneak in front of the line before him. P.S. Another piece of media that for me was also very successful in capturing the same atmosphere and authenticity is the excellent HBO series Chernobyl. All the best, Claudio. And again, I'm sorry if I'm getting that pronunciation wrong. I would guess, based on the spelling, that this could be Romania, Claudio, but I don't actually know. But I thought that was an interesting perspective because I do remember talking about it, and you were like, "Ooh, I don't know. That seems like, is that a little too far?" Or like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
With the family, and having more birth is a way to control half your population, and it is not uncommon in authoritarian regimes and things like that. And I don't know why that feels like it hits particularly close to home here in 2025, but it certainly does.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe the game doesn't go far enough then.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
but yeah,
it's not exploring that, but it is using it as a background for it. It's not exploring that specific aspect more deeply, I guess is what I
yeah,
mean.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, no, I appreciate that, Duff. Thank you so much for writing in because it is um When I think any fiction is trying to tackle subjects like that, I'm always trying to ask myself, is the author of that, appropriately taking cues from the real situation. So I think that's
actually, it's funny because I've heard I also try to do that. And sometimes I'm like, well, is this like a Western stereotype? And that's also fine. It's okay to do that. Like, I mean, it in particular in this game where it's a fictional country, it's like, okay, well, it's not trying to represent a real thing. But it also sort of is. So you're like, is it accurate? Where was I?
Yeah, it's just so it doesn't undermine. Its stereotypes are okay in most cases. It's just if it doesn't undermine the
real experiences.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
I had somewhere specific I was going with there, and I rambled my way out. No, it was me. And now I'm like, what was I going to say? I don't remember. But it's definitely it's a real issue to consider with authors, like how much can we be aware of the experience we're trying to represent. I have a game, it would probably be like a Twine game that I wanted to make on the basis of something I read once, and I'm like, I can't tell this story. Like, I'm not the person to tell this story. Because I'm a white, fairly privileged guy. This was a story about slavery, and things like that. And I was just like, I can't. I love this story. I wish I could make a game about this story. I can't. I cannot do that. But I do appreciate when people, attempt to. So and do a fair job of that. I also have seen that Chernobyl series, and I do actually think it's quite good. So yeah. Anyway, thanks for the emails. And keep them coming. We love to hear them. We also love to get your reviews. Haven't had one in a minute. Would love to have some more. They're the only way we kind of have a way of spreading this around. But you know what? Tell a friend. We do love to reach new listeners. We're on the web at devgameclub.com, and my co-host here twitches, actually technically in two places. They'll both be in the show notes, but mostly at twitch.tv/
Tim Longo Jr. with a JR at the end.
You are still exploring the universe in Outer Wilds, I believe.
Yeah, last session, man. Wow. So there's another revelation that and I know Kyle and lots of other folks are like one of their top games of all time. And I'm always a little, maybe too dismissive about those comments, but I do ask people, I was like, what are your favorite games of all time? like today, because it can change.
Yeah.
And that one definitely comes up, and I was wondering, not suspicious, but wondering why, and I can see. Yeah, that game is very well designed. Like,
yeah.
As a designer, that a game, and I'm not saying I know everything, because I don't. I'm still learning. Every single day I learn something new about game design. But I have been doing it for a while, and I have opinions. But that team, they really nailed something special.
Yeah, it's a super interesting and cool game, for sure. We have a fan-run Discord. We mentioned it quite a lot at the beginning of the show. There is a link if you'd like to join us there in the show notes. Our intro and outro music was written and performed by Kirk Hamilton. It was commissioned by friend of the cast, Aaron Evers. And our logo, that Discord, our merch store, all the things by Mark Garcia. Have fun cutting open and folding your newspapers this week, and good night.
Good night.